What's up, world? Welcome to the Rooted Real podcast. I'm your host, Carly Dill. Here, we ask real questions with real people about the real world. Let's jump right into this week's episode of the Rooted Real podcast. What's up, guys? For the very first time, welcome to the Rooted Real podcast. I'm your host, Carly Dill. I am here with my best friend, roommate, and first friend I ever met in LA, Jolene Atomo.
Hi, guys. What's going on? Carly, what are we doing here?
Jolene, I actually am shocked I got you to do this with me.
I just woke up. This is my bed.
Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked. In the middle. We're actually in our bedroom.
She's very pink.
She's very not pink. Okay, well, honestly, guys, I don't know how we got here, but we're starting a podcast. Yay!
Woo!
We're going to be asking real questions with real people about real topic.
We live on the west coast of Los Angeles, Marina del Rey.
Southern California. And Jolene, you're born and raised here.
I am born in San Francisco, raised in Orange County, moved to LA. We met when you were doing an internship at my church that I grew up at, Saddleback Church.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, it was crazy. I was actually going to Baylor University, Sick 'em Bears. And
she's a big Baylor girl.
Big Baylor girl. It was the pandemic. And it's a long story, but long story short, I ended up coming out here to do an internship. And day one, I met Jolene Atomo.
We're all hanging out at this food court. I get a text from a friend in a group chat. She's like, okay, hey, I got this girl. She's interning with me. She just moved here 2 days ago. You had just moved 2 days ago.
And I was living with these people on staff.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen anyone my age in like 48 hours, which is like the longest I've gone without seeing people. And I was like, they were the best host family, but I was like, I need friends so bad.
Yeah, so we all hang out at the food court, like right by our church. And then that's when I met you. And you were like, hi, I'm Carly Dill. I just came from Texas 2 days ago.
I've like never been out of Texas in my life. I'm like, where am
I want to make movies.
And you're there like, great,
let's do it.
Like, come on, let's do it. And Jolene was just so funny because, I don't know, it was crazy. And we just had the best summer
we did
ever. Like,
I love where I live. I love California.
Yeah.
So when Carly was like, I need someone to just show me everything, I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's go to LA. Let's go to every single event that we can
go to every event known to me. Jolene, what is it like being from California?
It feels really good to be born in a place that everyone wants to live at.
Right. You're like, yeah, we are
superior. Better. We are. No, I love it, especially because I grew up in Southern Orange County, so it was more suburban, but I went to LA all the time. Like, I would beg my mom before I could drive, like, there's this concert going on in LA, please, let's go.
People were like going to the beach, surfing and skating, and I was like, we go eat dinner. Like, you guys like are in the parking lot skating after church. And I was like, this is so dope. Like,
I know, it's awesome.
It was crazy. It's because you don't have to deal with 105-degree heat.
Right.
Is why.
We don't. What was your biggest shock factor of moving from Texas to California?
Oh my gosh. My biggest shock factor? There were so many shock factors.
There was.
My biggest shock factor from moving from Texas to California had to just be, I think, like, the lifestyle differences. Like, the shift of lifestyle was so interesting to me. In Texas, I just feel like everything kind of one way, and here everyone is like this, like, so different. Like I said about skateboarding, like, everyone goes outside, there's always an event, there's always something to do.
Yeah.
And with the beach and the mountains, and I remember we went to this college ministry thing, and it's like in Palm Springs, and you're just like doing so much.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling so myself, and everyone was so different that I felt like for the first time I was like able to be myself without like having to fit that box, you know?
What box are you talking about?
I went to Baylor when I was 17 and I stayed until I was 19, and I kept being like, I need to be married and have a child by the time I'm 21, and I need to like live in the white picket fence, and I need to have the husband and the wife, or I'm the wife, LOL. I always thought I had to be married, have a child, and live in a white picket fence and be a nurse or a teacher by the time I was 21 years old. And when I moved to California, I just met all these people, and I feel like I met you and your friends, and everyone like had these dreams, and everyone was like, we're going to make movies, or I'm going to go on tour and be a musician, or they were like, I'm going to be a doctor, but I want to travel the world. And like everyone just had this like mindset.
Yeah.
That I had never or rarely experienced, I felt like. And once I went, it felt so hard to think about going home because
you weren't going to stay forever. You
were
just doing a summer internship.
Yeah, so I was coming for the summer for 3 months. And then I don't know when I told you, but I was like, we went toured college together.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out how you were going to stay. Because you were freaking out. You were like, I don't want to go back to Texas.
And everyone was kind of like, you should stay. Like, no one was
you looked like you were thriving.
I was having the best of my life. I just felt like for the first time, this box that I felt like I had to fit in, I didn't like have to fit it anymore. And I think like a lot of people assume like, oh, you went and you were partying and you were doing all this stuff. And I'm like, no. Like
people from Texas.
And I like found people that loved Jesus. Like these were people like you and your friends. Right. And these were people that were the best people. Like I think people.
That's right. California, the best people. I'm just kidding.
They do have the prettiest people. Okay, anyway. But I think there's this like stigma that Californians aren't as Christian or Christian.
You think that the South often has that I'm sure that stigma goes more than just the South, but specifically because you were from Texas.
Right. I don't know why. I think it's like we come from Father, Son, Holy Bible. You know what I mean? It's so Bible, like it's so Bible based. It's the Bible Belt. And once I got saved and we lived in Waco, it just was like everyone saw things one way. And there's just very little room. Like, it's literally why we started this podcast, because there's just very little room, I felt like, to ask hard questions. I moved to California, met all these people who just believe very different things. People of all different race, religion, ethnicity, like just diversity in every way of the word. And I felt like I had never been exposed to that in my whole life. Or in this, since becoming a Christian.
Right.
And it forced me to like ask questions I like had never asked before. But I'm curious for you because you've lived here forever.
Me and Eli's my boyfriend, for those who don't
Shout
know.
out Eli, house boyfriend. Love you,
he's
Eli.
Right there.
Shout out Eli.
We were listening
He's behind the camera right
his
there.
Mom was like, please listen to this, and it was called The American Gospel, right?
Is it a movie?
American Gospel. It's just a YouTube. I don't know what it is, but it's on YouTube. It was posted like 5 years ago, but for some reason it's trending again.
Okay, great.
And they were really talking about like the Bible Belt in the South and like, I mean, just churches in general. The church, it was really relevant for today for sure. Right. And it was just talking about how a lot of churches will speak on following Jesus as like a, what was the phrase they used? It was like moral, just moralism. Like it's not, it's almost like you're not focusing on a relationship with Jesus, but you're focusing on these
doing the right things,
right things and following these steps. And like, it's just, it's like, oh, if you do this and this and this, do not do A, B, or C, instead of love the Lord with all your heart.
It's really
and
good.
A, B, and C will just
follow. Flow,
like, because if you're just so focused on like, okay, I can't sin today, I'm going to do my best to not sin. Like you're not inviting Jesus into doing your daily life. Yeah, it is really funny growing up here, like going to LA all the time. Like I went to this CBS taping of like, or I don't know if it's CBS, but this taping of a show called Boy Band when I was 16. And I asked my mom, I begged my mom to drive me every single week because I kept getting free tickets to
One Iota.
And I kept going, and I just became like such a big fangirl of like this boy band show. And I drove all the time. And so I grew up like seeing the stars and the dazzle and like the, oh, you could be a star here. And I, grew up wanting to act and sing and everything. So I saw the possibilities of it. So it was never a big, whoa, you can make this happen. It's just like, I always knew like, okay, this is a potential. It's not that far. I don't have to do a big move. Right. And so it was so funny getting to watch you like move from Texas, and then you're seeing everything for the first time, and you're like, we're going to like the golf store, the Tyler the Creator golf store. And
I thought it was the David Dobrik store.
And she was like, is this the David Dobrik store? And I'm like, no.
Right.
No.
Different people.
And then we're doing photo shoots on the Beverly Hills palm tree streets, and like, yeah, your eyes were just so like lit up because it was like I could see like, oh, this is the first time you see like your dreams can be a possibility.
They're a reality.
But I will say what's interesting about that is it is hard because like, okay, now I do live in LA. Now I'm not in Orange County. I am. Right. It is different. Like OC and LA do have their differences. And it is hard because I didn't have to do a big move. Like, my parents are only an hour away. Like, if everything goes wrong, I can go home and it's not the biggest thing. I didn't have a big, I'm doing it. I'm all in. I'm going for my dreams. It's very, like, why not? I could live in I could go move an hour away from my parents for a little bit.
And you had never moved out other than college anyway. So that was
exactly.
Your, like...
So I was like, yeah, this is so fun. And, like, I am auditioning and doing commercials here and there. But, like... Yeah, so it's like, okay, it's closer and everything, but I will say the people that I'm meeting here in LA, almost everyone I meet in LA is not from LA. And so they did the big, like, I gave up everything to, like, move over here. Like, I believe in myself so much that I will leave and fly across the country to go for it and go for my dreams. And so that kind of dedication, it is really inspiring.
It works out or it doesn't, and if it doesn't, you move home.
You move all the way back home. And so...
walk of shame, back home. Like, literally. But also, not to interrupt you, but I think there is something, too, about... That's also not totally true all the time.
Right.
Like, some people move to LA, and it is an opportunity, but also LA is not for everybody.
Right.
Like, we are doing something here.
Yeah.
And you have to be bought in to what we're doing out here. Yeah. And I don't know what that's like for people that don't know Jesus, but for people like us who are trying to follow Jesus, like, I feel like I'm out here for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think some people move out here with a dream, but no purpose, too.
Right. So how did you... know what that reason was, or like when did you come to terms of like, oh, I have a reason and I need to follow that feeling and move to LA?
Yeah, it's so crazy. I felt like it was with you guys. Like we went to this event called One Day LA, and it was the Justin Bieber concert in LA, and I had been praying for so long about like, I think I'm gonna move to California. My mom thought I was crazy, but she supported me anyway, and everyone thought I was crazy, but everyone was kind of like, yeah. And that's a long God story that Jolene and I like literally, like, you had to be there, but it was like so cool. But I think, like, even just seeing you and your friends and what the Lord was doing through you guys, and then also just coming in, I just felt like we met so many non-believers. Like, we met so many people that don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
And, I just felt like we met so many people that didn't know Jesus. And as much as also I felt that box in the South, there's also, like, I leave so encouraged because, like, it is so awesome. There's community group everywhere. There's a million. In Waco, Texas alone, where I'm from, there's 150 Baptist churches. Yeah, just Baptist. Crazy. Like, not Pentecostal, not Catholic, Baptist. Over 150 Baptist churches. And it is not a big town, you know? So it's, like, there's a church on every corner. There's a Bible in every... in every home, and not totally. And it's so encouraging. And people there are on fire. They love God. They love people, and they are on mission. Mm-hmm. But I also felt like when there's that verse in scripture that's like, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And I felt like in Waco, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are also plentiful. And in LA and in California, it felt like the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few and far between. And so I felt like, and everyone thinks I'm crazy, what God was doing out here was so intentional. Not that it's not intentional everywhere else, but I think you feel this way too. Like, I feel so confident that, like, if LA got saved, like if people in LA were on fire for Jesus, going to church, discipling one another, everything in between, I think the entire world could be changed.
Yeah.
And I just think there's very few places in America and even in the world that can say that.
Right. The influence LA has.
The influence LA, and I don't mean followers. I mean, yes, there's that element of, like, following, but just, like, the people here that own businesses, that, just the amount of influence this city has on culture.
Right.
So much culture starts here.
Yeah.
And I just am like, wow,
Yeah.
what would happen? But
and that's a good perspective, because I think people here know that, like they know, oh my gosh, like LA is just so worldly, and like they influence like so much that a lot of Christians know that, like, oh, LA has so much influence, they're so of the world, like they, like, why would you ever as a believer, like, why would you move there? When I was like, oh, I'm moving to LA, like when I wanted to move out of the house because I had just got home from college, and I was like, whoa, like, moving back home after college is really hard. Texted Carly. Carly's like, well, I texted you. Yeah. And you were like, oh, I actually have an opening in my room.
Praise God.
And it was the perfect timing. And so I'm like, okay, I'm moving to LA. Everyone's like, oh, be careful. Like,
even where you're from.
Yeah, in OC, like, because like OC is like
different.
We're like our little bubble of LA.
Yeah.
We get all the good things of LA without
the drama.
Without the drama.
Right.
And so when I'm like, I'm moving, it's just like an hour. Oh, like, okay, like, we'll be praying for you. Like, be careful. Like, really make sure that you're like, which is great. Like, all good stuff. Right. But I could really feel like the fear. And I'm like, guys, I'm literally going to be roommates with Carly. Like, what's, like, you guys, I'm going to be fine. And what's so funny is when I moved to LA, I went to Christian college. So I went to Christian college, grew up in OC, which is like predominantly Christian. And I moved to LA. And this community that I found in LA because of Carly is the most like supportive group of believers I've ever had in like my life. In LA. And I think that's so funny because everyone's like, oh my gosh, we're in LA, like it's so scary. And I'm like, you guys, like I am such in a bubble. Like it's almost the opposite problem I have, where I'm like, almost everyone I meet now is just a believer and like doing the same thing, you know, like almost everyone has the same mission and purpose. I'm like, oh shoot, like what you were saying earlier of like LA has so much influence, like there's so much room to be evangelists here. I'm like, I need to be stepping out more.
Come on.
Which is crazy, and no one, and like I think what we have is special. I'm not saying that you're gonna move to LA and immediately have that unless you find us.
Unless you come hang out. If you want to move to LA and come hang out with us, give us a call.
But it is just it's so crazy, and no one really gets that. I think until they don't understand that until, but it's like you kind of all the believers in LA kind of like have found each other, and it does feel like God has put it on so many of our hearts to like go for this mission here in LA.
Come on. That's so good. So on that, I think that's so good. And people always ask me like, do people really love Jesus in LA?
Yeah.
Do you know, like, they're like, do people really love Jesus in LA? And you're like, man, I think so.
I hope so.
I hope so. And it feels, I get why they ask that. Like, I get that they're like, come on. But do they really?
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't know if you feel this way, but it has been crazy to also, again, I know we have similar experiences, different experiences, but people also have, there's like a stigma around LA and the Christianity in LA being like a tainted Christianity, being like, oh, well, y'all are kind, like, it's like a 50% Christianity or a 70%, you know? And I just feel like in some other places, not just the South where I'm from, just everywhere, some people, there's just, and even here, there's like a holier than thou feeling. Yeah. That like there's a hierarchy of Christianity. And what I try, like, I don't know, you know, I don't know if I'm going crazy, but, and I don't feel like anyone talks about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we have it all together. I don't have my crap together. Like, I don't have it together. But at the same time, we're just two people actually trying to be in our 20s and follow Jesus. Do you feel like there's a stigma around living in LA at all?
Yeah.
And like, what is that? Like, and do you feel that? And even being from OC, like, curious.
Yeah. I'm sure my experience is different than yours because it's like I don't really know anyone that
lives even your family and your friends saying that.
I will say, like, even just between the LA OC, like, there is the, like, oh, you're so LA now, or, like, whatever. I don't know what that necessarily means. There is a culture in LA. You have to be in this world, but not of the world. And so what does that mean? We do live in LA. There is a culture. If, you know, like, there is a way we like to dress. But what does that mean? Like, how, like, when you're getting dressed every day, is it, oh, I'm trying to show off because, like, I want to be seen. Right. Or if you're just like, this is my way of being creative, and
Right.
I love, like, getting
Right.
to choose what I wear
Right.
and, like, feeling great about it.
Right.
And, like, I don't need the, like, you know, and
Right.
so...
Obviously, you and I live here, and we know what God's doing, and we're pro living in LA and being Christian, but what is, like, hard about being a Christian in LA? Like, is there something that's really hard?
Following Jesus in LA, I mean, especially as, like, an actor
yeah.
and, like, doing music and everything, it's,
Right.
like, having to weigh, like, okay, like, can I take this audition?
Wow.
And then the thing about that is, too, is, like, so many Christians here will have different convictions. Especially if the Bible isn't so specific on it. And that is really tough for me because I like getting advice from a lot of people. And so when the advice is not matching up, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? So you do have to be very strong in your convictions and knowing, like, it's okay. Like, we've had this conversation a lot of, like,
Totally.
It's okay if this is how you feel. Like, your discernment's kind of, like, leaning towards this. You're reading your Bible, spending time with Jesus, and you feel like you don't feel convicted over this and taking the certain role. Like, maybe the role is, like, they are cursing here and there. But at the end of the day, you're just playing a part, and then the overall premise of the movie you do like. Like, that's, you know, some Christians will take that and some Christians won't. And then maybe you took that role, but then next year, that same role kind of gets offered to you, but you're like, you know what, I'm feeling different. Like, that's okay.
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, it is your heart posture. I wish it could be, like, so easily black and white. I do think you shouldn't be lukewarm. Like, if you're convicted on something, you should act with that conviction and boldly say no to a project. But I will say that can be hard, like especially when people have different convictions.
But those aren't everyday. I feel like also living here, it's also, those aren't everyday questions that most people encounter. And I feel like, you're an actor and you make music, and music's a big one, you know, and that's an episode for another podcast, but that's a whole episode in itself. But ultimately, I do feel like, and you specifically, because, you know, you also work in production. We do video and producing and acting and music and all these things. And it's like, I feel like we just have to talk. We have to question so often about what jobs we take and what we don't.
It's hard about living in LA for you.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. What's hard about loving Jesus and living in LA is that we are the minority. Yeah, everybody believes something different here. It is the melting pot of ideas. And in LA specifically, everyone has a different idea of what truth is, a different idea of what identity is, a different idea of what success is. And the reality is that there is only one place that, like, defines all of that, and it's the Bible. But what's hard is, like you said, like, the Bible is not black and white. So for me, though, ultimately the hardest part about living in LA, too, with that is people, I think I've felt often misunderstood because I make different decisions that, you know, aren't black and white. And I'm just trying to figure out what I believe. And that's really hard. Like, America in itself has dozens of cultures, hundreds of cultures in itself. And we live in such a specific culture. And we live 5 minutes from the ocean. You know what I mean? People come to church in crop tops and bikinis sometimes because they came from surfing that morning. You know, it's like, it's just a different culture that, honestly, culture shocked me heavily. And so it's really hard to live in LA and follow Jesus when everybody believes something different.
Yeah.
And identifies truth as something different. And so I've been really working in my faith of just nailing down, like, what is truth? What do I believe?
And not letting other people's
opinions sway.
But literally just you and the Lord.
Me and the Lord deciding, God, I love you. Here's what your word says. This is how I interpret it. And this is a whole episode in itself, but even...
And show me if I got it wrong.
Show me if I get it wrong. Convict me if I'm wrong.
Like David in Psalms of, like, search my heart.
Yeah.
Show me all the wicked ways.
Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. I'm just going to seek him and believe that he's going to give all these things to me. And I have been so affirmed that God gives good gifts.
Yeah.
And I just think for the first time. It's been so hard. But that's why we're sitting here, is because I feel like I have so many questions and so many things. And I want to talk to other people, but also I'm learning to learn for myself.
Yeah. I will say, like, before I moved to LA, I was questioning a lot. My last year of college was questioning a lot. Yeah. And I was at California Baptist University, it's not too much different beliefs, but there's a little bit, like some people, and I've happened to find some,
I know about Baptist University.
yeah. And and then, I don't know, I just started questioning a lot, which I think is common when you turn around 22. And I started questioning a lot, and I was like, well, why? Like, the why questions that I never let myself ask, because I was, born into a family that loved the Lord. So I just always was like, Jesus is my superhero. We're like,
we're besties.
We're besties.
Yeah.
Then I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And I think that if I still was going through that when I moved here, I could have found some like crazy stuff to play. Because like some of that stuff is exciting. You're like, wait, what? Like, you believe in rocks? And like, like, I'm like, why not? Like, I was in a mindset where I was like, why not?
Well, also, people here believe crazy stuff that I've never heard in my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, I go home and it's like redneck cowboys and like in their jeans and whatever. And I come here and people are like, I worship the earth god. And you're like, cool. Like,
at that time, like when I was like, my last year of college, I would have been like, tell me more. Like, I'm interested. Right. And then now but after all that searching, I'm like, no, I know what the truth is. But yeah, there's still a lot of questions, but there is this overarching sovereign truth.
Right.
And I think that's what so it's like when you said like the Bible's not black and white, it's like, well, the Bible is black and white about one thing, and that is the gospel message.
Yeah, so good.
That is like you calling out to the Lord as you're calling out to Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and it's your heart.
People have a hard time believing that not only do people love Jesus in LA, but that we have community. Because again, something that I will say, that I came to know Jesus and I went to one church. Shout out Harris Creek. Love you guys. Love Harris Creek. And they do community groups so well. I was just there and there's like 5,000 people in the building, and you're like, this is so sick. Yeah. Like, everyone loves God. We're on mission. Let's go. Like, let's go, Jesus. And even though I found you and there, some people are like, okay, there might be some of you. Like, there might be a couple of you that love Jesus in LA. And, like, cool. Like, a couple of you made it out and you're still being faithful and you still pray. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cool. But, like, tell us about your community, our community in LA.
Yeah.
Tell us about our community in LA, because I don't think people actually believe me when I talk about it.
Oh, yeah. It's like a massive friend group of like, honestly, maybe over 100 people.
So it's just outrageous.
No, it is.
And you have a completely other group from college too.
Yeah.
You have like a ton of Christian friends, I feel.
Yeah, it is. That's like what I was saying earlier of like, oh, I have to go out to remember like, oh, we're here on mission here on earth. We're saved. So the only reason we're left here on earth is to go build the kingdom of God. So it's like I have to remember, okay, I can't just sit around hanging with my friends. Like, let me go, like, But no, this community is awesome. Like, I mean, you introduced me to everyone, which thank you. But it is sick of like what you have built with some great friends of ours of doing worship nights, and we're not even connected. Like, we all go to church, but we're not we're not doing this worship night connected to a church. Like, we're just doing worship night and Bible studies and and we go hanging out on the beach, having fun.
And we go to the Forrest Frank show together, or we'll do fun things together. I feel like that are so fun. Yeah, so because you had community in Orange County and you had community in LA, and like, how do you think that's just like impacted your faith? Like, do you think it would be, obviously we know it'd be harder, but like, have you seen like a direct impact in your life?
I will say, like, the community in LA, it's just like, it's more like-minded people in the sense of like, oh, you love the Lord and you believe that creating art or telling stories is important enough for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that I felt like wasn't being taken as seriously in OC. Also hard when you're not. Totally. You got to we do this stuff together. Like this podcast, we're doing with each other. And like, if you're not with people who want to be doing that, you know, it's hard. But here, we're all wanting to share stories in different ways. Like, whether you're singer, writer, maker music, filmmaker, producer, like, it's like we all want to do something and creative and do it for Jesus. I thought I was so different, like growing up being like, oh, I don't want to be a Christian artist. I want to be an artist who's a Christian. And then you move here and everyone's trying to do that. Like, I'm like, all right, Jesus, it's fine. It's covered. Like, I met 10 singer-songwriters who love the Lord and want to make songs that aren't, like, for a Christian audience, but, like, they'll somehow find Jesus in it. I'm good.
Right. You're like,
it's
hey,
covered.
Michael Howell, we get it.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't need to do it anymore. I'll just chill. Yeah.
Okay,
no, but it's cool. It's inspiring. And you're sharing stories and you're talking about, like, it's awesome.
Praise God. No, that's awesome.
What do you think the difference is from, like, you were really involved in your church in Waco, Harris Creek, and you are so involved in being a huge kingdom community builder here in LA. So, like, how do you feel like that has impacted you?
It's such a good question. I tell everyone, I think you knew this because I met you day one. My time in Waco fundamentally built me and prepared me for what we're doing here in LA.
Yeah.
JP, shout out Jonathan Pacluda, my pastor from back home, always said he wanted Harris Creek to be a disciple-making factory. And it's crazy because I just went home and I, like, saw all the people that are still there, and then there's so many people that aren't there anymore, and there's so many people that aren't there because we went to Baylor, went to Harris Creek, and we left.
Yeah.
And as much as, you know, being from the South, it is, you know, I do think there are some nuances to, like, kind of being in a bubble, but at the same time, I felt like I just went in, learned everything, and now I'm here.
Yeah.
And without it, that experience fundamentally shaped me.
Right.
And I genuinely think without that experience, I would have fallen off. Like, there is so much temptation here in LA. There is so much.
And really quick, I want to say, like, from knowing you, from witnessing that, because when I first met you, I was shocked to hear that you had only been saved for 2 years. Because you were 20.
I was 19.
You were 19.
I was 19 when I got saved when I was 17.
And the way you were speaking about the Bible, like, the knowledge that you had, the wisdom that you had, I was like, no way, you were just saved 2 years ago. So I will say, like, your church and your mentors did an amazing job of just drilling truth into your head of, like, the Bible. Just, like, straight from the Bible.
Right.
And those Bible verses are locked in your head. You know what I mean? And, like, I'm like, oh, wow, I don't know. I grew up in church, and I'm like, oh, this is great. No, so I will say, that, like, I can see that, and I totally agree with you of, like, having that foundation is so important.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that too. And it wasn't me. Like, I felt like my church, my community, my life group, my mentor, everyone built me to do what we're doing now. And what's funny though is you never know when that day's gonna come. And and I'm careful to say God called me somewhere. I love telling the story because I don't feel like God called me to LA and said, you have to go, whatever. But it was an open door and I had a choice to walk through it.
Yeah.
And walking through it, I knew this is going to be hard. Just way harder than I expected it to be. I knew it had so many unknowns, but coming out, leaving Waco, feeling so prepared. I left Waco feeling so prepared. And I love coming back, and I tell everyone we are on mission. Yeah. We are here. It might not be the Dominican Republic. It might not be Europe. It might not be, you know, all these places people go on mission, but we are on mission here in LA. I do not live here. And I think, this community changed my life. I moved here, I met you. And it's just so funny because I really think you're the catalyst to everything. It's so funny. You're like, I introduced you to this community. I'm like, yeah, but it's because we play ping pong. Like, I met you, but because I met you, I met someone else, and then I met these people, and then you met them because
it was all for a reason.
It's all God.
And I'm sure we could talk about it for 3 more hours.
So all that being said, my time in Waco and in Texas as a believer prepared me for what we're doing out here and now. And I think I'm just so excited because we're doing this podcast to learn and grow even more.
Right.
All that being said, we have the most incredible community. People love God, and we just get to see crazy things happen every single day. I think it would be a disservice.
And we can't wait to tell you about them.
Oh my gosh. We have the coolest friends. I have the coolest friends in the world. I have the best roommate in the world. Our other roommate, Susie. Shout out Susie Taylor. We love you. Last question. What would you say to someone trying to follow Jesus, either in LA or somewhere where they're leaving their hometown in a new place where temptation's hard and the world is hard? What advice would you give to someone trying to follow Jesus in a hard environment?
Go to church.
Come on, somebody.
It's just, even if, and I think that's what's hard, is like, I mean, I'm like searching, I can't find a good church. Like, it's just like not what I know. This isn't like the same church I had growing up. Like, it's like at the end of the day, if you are lost, like you don't know what next step to go and you just need community, like just go to a church.
Come on.
Give it some time. You'll meet someone. Like, if
you go to church and you plug in.
Like, you're going to meet someone. And that someone knows another someone. And, go to church.
Go to church. That's so good.
What is one piece of advice that you have for someone who would like to follow Jesus in a place that they might not know anyone or lead to temptation?
Right. My advice is, Jolene took probably the best one, which is, Jolene said it, go to church. Thing number 2, I would say, is read your Bible and know what you believe.
Yeah, that's good.
Know what you believe before you start making decisions. If you're about to move somewhere, if you're graduating college, if you're starting a job, you need to know your convictions before you go in. Because if I had moved here and didn't know what I believed, and again, I'm asking myself new questions and figuring that out, but I had a foundation knowing what I believe, and I knew the Bible enough to know what not to do.
Right.
And if you don't know what you believe, you'll be influenced by everyone around you. And I have been influenced, and I do know what I believe. You know what I mean? Know what you believe, stand firm in what you believe, because you will be influenced if you don't have a firm foundation. So that's my advice, is go to church. Sounds so cliche, but read the Bible. Know what you believe for you, not for anyone else. That's how I would stay rooted in the real world. That's how I would do it. And we're just figuring it out. I don't have it all together either.
We talked a lot about like, what's happening in LA, mission here in LA. But so I think another episode can definitely talk about that more.
There's much more to come. Wow. Well, that's all for today.
Thanks,
on the
Carly.
Real. Thanks, Jolene. I guess
I love that I didn't have to leave my bed for this.
I know. Should we go to bed now?
Yeah. Good night.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.